Wednesday the 15th, and you know what that means. A new episode of Cinema Conversation. I'm Jack Ellis.
Jeff Ellis.
And today is a special episode, a very special episode indeed. We're going to be talking about our top 10 favorite movies of all time, and a little bonus, a set tour of our set, or it's just my room, spoiler alert. So anyway, before we start, I'm going to clear up some things that we didn't get in our last week, because we really need to start scripting this show. So the only comment we got was from one C. Watkins that said, "Eat et dirt furry," all 3 words spelled wrong. To clear up the rumor that I am not, in fact, a furry. I go to Comic-Con, but that's a different story. And also, some movies we forgot last week about cops. Did we talk about Chinatown?
No.
Jack Nicholson?
No.
That would be a good one. But the main one that I forgot to do, if I were part of a mafia hit, I would go with the police, either from The Departed or Donnie Brasco. Except The Departed, gets their brains blown out of their skull, actually, quite a bit.
Okay.
But I made a wrong decision last week in who I would choose to investigate my murder. And this is a good one. These people are trained in police work and police pop culture. Drumroll, please. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
There you go. That's
my police department. The Precinct 99 of the NYPD. The perfect detective agency. Here's why. So it's obviously an episodic show. So in any case they get, they're gonna solve it in roughly 22 minutes. They know how to have fun with a case, maybe a little too much fun, especially with Detective Peralta. But they have all the great makings of a precinct. Police officers that know what they're doing. A no-nonsense captain. And I know that my case would be solved within a week. But enough with follow-ups from the last video. Let's get into the topic at hand. Our top 10 favorite movies. And as a special treat, I'm going to let Dad go first. So we're just going to talk about what they are and why.
Okay. My number 1 movie of all time is It's a Wonderful Life. Frank Capra directed it. And you would just have to see it to understand. It's probably the best story ever filmed that was put on. And it's absolutely a classic. I don't think there's any... I've never seen a movie it's even in its league, honestly, but it is by far my favorite movie, and I think the greatest movie ever made. The next movie, number 2 on my list, is actually The Imitation Game, which is a relatively recent movie, but the reason that I like it so well is because it tells a historical story quite accurately, which I knew a lot about this story before I ever heard of the movie, The Imitation Game. So I was interested in seeing it to see how well it stuck to the historical facts of that incident. And it was actually excellent. It held real well together. And it's always been a fascinating true story. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of The Imitation Game. I think it's really cool because I like decoding things. A little thing about me, I like ciphers and stuff like that. And this is like the perfect movie for anybody who likes that sort of thing. And this movie was made in 2014, 2015, around there.
Right.
So this was probably the movie that put Benedict Cumberbatch into the mainstream. This was probably a pretty big break, honestly. He's a pretty big actor now, but I think before that, not many people knew about him. But
yeah, he played it brilliantly, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliantly. And then the next one is Chariots of Fire, which is an old movie from the 70s that is about the 1920 British Olympic team, which doesn't sound very interesting, but it actually is a brilliant multi-level masterpiece movie about sprinters and runners and what their psychology is. I think the movie is really interesting. The next movie on my list is The Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first one. It was just such a groundbreaking movie, and it was so much fun to watch. And I've watched it probably 15 times, and I still think it's really a lot of fun to watch.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
There you go. The next movie on my list is The Sting, which was made by and it had Paul Newman and Robert Redford in it. It was a classic sort of a con man movie where the cons actually had to out-con the cons, which is kind of what it was.
Yeah.
And it was the whole thing was just is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. I've seen that like a couple of times, and I've loved watching it every time, especially Robert Redford, because there's so many scenes in there when he is just so funny. And I don't know if you have this on your list, so I'll try not to spoil anything. Probably his second greatest movie. It's so close to being... So, this one is so close to being his best, but only outmatched by The Sting. Wait for it. All the President's Men.
Yes, that's very good too. The next movie I have is Breaking Away, which is not a whole lot of people probably know about it. It was made in the 70s. It's a very low budget movie, but the story of it is fascinating. And since I grew up in a college town and sort of grew up on a college campus, that's kind of the story of these guys. They all grew up on a college campus too. And so I relate a lot to that.
Yeah, if you don't know about it, it has Daniel Stern, which you all probably know better as Marv from Home Alone.
Yes.
Which I have some Home Alone representation back there. Yeah, I watched this once with Dad when I was in, like, 3rd grade. I mean, it didn't really... I haven't seen it since, so I don't have any, like... I don't really have a dog in the fight. I was so young, I really didn't even understand it, but I'm sure it's a pretty good movie, because Dad and I have lived in Moorhead, Kentucky almost all our entire lives. So we actually, we know what it's like to live near a college campus. Pretty much all our best attractions in this town is dedicated, or, you know, in no small part to Moorhead State University. So anyway.
Yeah, and also it's sort of a classic example of an underdog story. So and if you like underdog stories, it's really a nice example.
If you like underdog stories.
You've got one on yours, I'm
yeah.
sure. The next one I put on my list is The Bucket List, which I thought was really kind of it had a really great message in it too. And Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson, I think they were both brilliant in it. So I really, really enjoyed that movie. I've watched it several times.
Real talk, okay? So there's about a handful of movies that if you don't cry at the end of them, you're probably a psychopath.
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and The Bucket List, just to name a few.
Yes, it is. Very tear-jerking at the end, absolutely.
Especially that speech that Jack Nicholson gives at Morgan Freeman's funeral.
Right.
And the letter that he gave to him right before he died. Like, there's the voiceover and all that. Yeah, I think it's actually pretty funny how we talked about both Chinatown, like Jack Nicholson's first big movie, and then The Bucket List, which will probably be one of his big last movies, because there's such a divide in the careers. Because, like, in the 80s, like, he wasn't he was good. He just wasn't in a lot of stuff. I mean, he was the Joker and Batman, but that's about it. I can't. What else did he do in the 80s?
Well, it had a lot of those references in it. The next one I have on my list is the first Star Wars movie, the one from the 70s. New Hope, I guess, was what it was called. But it was so new when it came out. Nobody had ever seen or heard of anything like this before when it came out. The special effects on it were just, at the time, were just like mind-boggling to watch. And so everybody just, it was just a fascinating movie that's launched probably an entire industry. Because before the original Star Wars movie, that type of movie was essentially unheard of. So I think Star Wars, it was a really fun movie, but it also launched about 100 other ones too.
And if you like Stranger Things 3, you'll remember the scene in the video store where it's, name your top 5 favorite movies. Star Wars, A New Hope. No, one with the teddy bears. Duh.
The next one on my list is the first Mission Impossible movie.
That's a great one.
The one with Tom Cruise. I remember the original Mission Impossible TV show from when I was a kid, so I related to that. But also, the way it was done, with a lot of the electronic stuff and their surveillance and all their different
and the
tricks, the tricks they used and stuff. I just thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, and you know whose idea it was to do a Mission Impossible remake?
Who?
Tom Cruise himself.
Oh, well.
He said, so they went to the studio and he said, you can pick any 60s TV show to make a remake of, and he said Mission Impossible. So yeah, I actually really liked it, and the Mission Impossible series has gotten, like, really good. Like, there's very few, at least that I've seen, movie series where it goes up to 6 movies, and the first one and the 6th one are the best ones.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible Fallout, in my opinion, was just a modern-day masterpiece.
It was a great movie,
Tom Cruise is getting old, yet he's still hanging on to helicopters by ropes. I don't know how and he does all his own stunts. That man has a death wish.
I don't know how he does it either, but he sure pulls it off. And then the last one on my list is just because I'm a World War II person who's spent my entire life studying that war, then I had to have at least one war movie on there, which I think the best World War II movie I've ever seen was Patton with George C. Scott. And so that was kind of all the war movies, that was a classic one. But you have to be a World War II person to really get into it. But it's really well done.
Really good runner-up, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, Saving Private Ryan was a good movie, very realistic about the Normandy landing. That's pretty much exactly how it happened. But yeah, I had to pick one, so I picked Patton. Interesting that George C. Scott won an Oscar for that movie, but refused to take it. One of the first people I've ever heard of that won an Oscar but refused to accept it.
That was George C. Scott?
Yeah, for Patton.
Oh, I thought that was Marlon Brando.
Well, I don't know about
Godfather.
I don't know about Brando, but I know that George C. Scott won it for Patton, but he didn't accept it.
Yeah, and the thing is that both my grandpas, his dad and his father-in-law, both fought in World War II, and they died very recently.
Yes.
So God rest their soul.
Yes.
So I guess it's my turn?
It is your turn.
Okay. So you went from 1 to 10. I'll go from 10 to 1.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot of ties on this, and I tried to make it as diverse as possible. Number 10, for animated movies, either the Peanuts movie or Ratatouille.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Peanuts movie because, like, as you can see, I have 2 shelves on my bookshelf just dedicated to just Peanut stuff that I've gotten over the years. And it's really stayed true to everything that made the Peanuts great. Like, you see all these remakes of classic properties, and they're just, like, they're trying to make it as modern day as possible, and it just misses the point entirely. But the Peanuts movie didn't try to please anyone. They just knew that it would work. The Peanuts worked. It's endearing. It's a timeless cartoon, honestly, in my opinion. And anybody who says that Peanuts is an overrated comic, I'll tell you where you can shove it. So, number 9 was one on your list. It's a Wonderful Life. Frank Capra, masterful directing. Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed, this was probably their best movie.
It was their favorite movie, too. They both said that when asked what their favorite movie they ever made was, they both said it was that one.
It's actually kind of surprising. Jimmy Stewart almost didn't do this movie. Like, he said, it was his first movie he did after coming back from World War II, and he had what we refer to nowadays as PTSD. Mm-hmm. But he decided to try it, and it was actually a pioneer in snow in movies, surprisingly enough. Mm-hmm. At that time, people would use, like, painted cornflakes, but they used something that was a little quieter, so they didn't have to overdub the lines. Number 8, Gremlins. I love Gremlins. It's a great movie to watch around Christmas, because, like, it's a Christmas movie. So, I love Gizmo. It's like, part of it is just kind of It's a Wonderful Life, and then part of it's just a straight up horror movie. But, like, even when it's scary, it's kind of funny. Like, there's a gremlin that's, like, flashing people, and then they're all in the movie theater watching Snow White. But the best part about it is Gizmo, by far, which his noises were done by Howie Mandel. I'm not... Oh, this is the wrong paper. Don't look at that. Number 7, Back to the Future. Best time travel movie of all time, in my opinion. One of the best movies of all time. There's a lot of Steven Spielberg on both of our lists. He's one of the most masterful directors. He really has he really has a love of the craft, and he makes every movie he makes just great. And I love Back to the Future. Everybody's acting is great. Characters are great. And it's just a great movie. I don't know what else to say. You know, there's just something about it that works. Number 6, Ghostbusters. I love Ghostbusters. Since I was like in 3rd grade, I loved Ghostbusters. Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis wrote it in I think like a weekend or something. Like, they just locked themselves in a room and just wrote the entire thing. And then they directed it, and then they, so it's funny, all the characters are likable, it has a great story that moves from point A to point B, and, the second one just tried to do the exact same thing, and the remake, don't even get me started, because I know if I say anything, I'll get, like, you know, I'll become a pariah. I hated it. I hated every minute of it, because it just, like, you can make movies specifically to pander to the lowest common denominator. Just don't make it Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great movie. It didn't need to be, that remake didn't need to be made.
And Ghostbusters Afterlife, I don't expect it to be great. I just expect it to be better than the remake, which it's coming out this summer. So just please go see it. If, you know, the remake bombed, so if we get this to actually do well at the box office, then I hope this will just send a message. I kind of went, Okay, now we're getting into the top 5. This is the good stuff. Trading Places. Another Dan Aykroyd movie. Dan and I both talked about how much we loved this movie in our New Year's video.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, Don Amici, Jamie Lee Curtis, Coleman, the Duke brothers, they're all just hilarious. Like,
It is. Everybody in it's funny.
I love it for its social commentary, because there's a lot of commentary in it about our 1983 society that's still kind of present in our society today. But it doesn't hit you over the head with it. It's kind of subtle about it.
It is.
Great cinematography. I love the look of this movie. The look of like like these big mansions and big, huge buildings made specifically for fancy people. It's just great. Great actors. Yeah, I already talked about how funny the actors are, and it's a pretty freaking good Christmas movie. Like,
yeah, it is.
And New Year's movie, as we talked about. Number 4, Halloween. I love Halloween. Dad actually saw it in theaters in 1978.
Right.
He doesn't really care for scary movies, but I actually really enjoy it. This is just a crash course in like suspense and tension. It makes the most menial task seem absolutely terrifying. Like, there are shots of just Michael Myers just going across, like, just going downstairs. Just a man going down the stairs is just terrifying in that movie. And, like, I do admit at some points the acting's kind of bad and, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of whiny, but this was really good for her first movie, you know?
Yeah.
Don't hate on it too much.
It was.
Then she was seen as sort of a scream queen for the next 3 years, and then, of course, she was in Trading Places, which got her in movies like True Lies. This was really her call to fame. This was what put her on the map. John Carpenter got a lot of his inspiration for scary movies like Halloween and The Thing, from Alfred Hitchcock, who described tension and suspense as two people sitting at a table talking about baseball. And one of them, and under the table is a bomb. We know there's a bomb, but they don't know there's a bomb. Tension.
Yeah.
This has one of the greatest movie scores, like, in movie history, honestly. Like, it has a great instrumental. It was all composed by John Carpenter. It's actually so effective that they took it to the studio, and he said that wasn't scary. He put the score in. It was the same movie, but just with the score. The same person said it was terrifying. That's how great it was. I had great writing and great acting, but that's mainly just for Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasance masterfully playing Dr. Sam Loomis. He was so great in that role. His blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. Okay, we're getting down to the wire here. Wait a minute. There's 6 movies on here? 1, 2. Oh. Okay, so number 3 is Die Hard. I love this movie. If it weren't for the last 2 movies, this would be the top spot. I absolutely love this movie, if you couldn't tell. Okay, the hero is great. He's sympathetic. He's not ready for action. He's just a guy trying to go to a Christmas party. And now he's supposed to save 30 people from terrorists. And the thing is, he's not just ready for action. He is scared. Shootless this entire movie until he realizes that, you know, people like the worst part of the movie is people like Dwayne T. Robinson, the FBI agents, who are just like unhumanly incompetent. But like all the characters are sympathetic. The writing and acting is just great by Steven D'Souza and Jeb Stewart. The villain is great. this was Alan Rickman's first movie, surprisingly enough, and he just knocked it out of the park. Bruce Willis's first action movie, and there were a lot of people chosen for these roles. Like, there was gonna be like Richard Gere, Clint Eastwood, Mel Gibson, and even like. Sorry, we have a pretty big windstorm here in Moorhead. Even freaking Frank Sinatra, Old Blue Eyes was almost chosen for the role of John McClane.
Yeah.
Take a second to rationalize that. But first, I know this video is running kind of long, but can I just rant for a second? Can we please stop the debate on whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie? We're beating a dead horse so we can resurrect it like Frankenstein and then just kick the crap out of it again. Like, I'm tired of these. Like, I think Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and I will debate with that. I don't know the last 7 people on Earth that think it isn't. I've noticed that people who argue against it being a Christmas movie either have never seen it or don't like the movie.
Yeah.
And I hate the people that think like they're the smartest or funniest person in the room saying like, I got a good Christmas movie for you to watch. Die Hard. I just don't like those people. I don't like them. Like, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I watched it 3 times last Christmas season. 3 times. Okay? So, can we please just stop? For the love of all that is holy, just stop.
Okay.
Okay, last 2. JFK. Kevin Costner's greatest movie. Field of Dreams is good, but this is his best. There's so many great monologues in this, great drama, great cinematography. There's this one scene where it's like in early morning light, and even just like coming through the windows of an enclosed room, and like even if it's like 30 degrees outside, you feel like warm. You feel like there's not enough air in this room. It's weird that a movie that's on a screen can give you real world feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So Dad and I are big JFK conspiracy theorists, and this is a great movie for anybody who's into that sort of thing. This probably gives the most convincing explanation for what actually happened on November 22nd, 1963. There's great drama. It's so hard to watch, like, the decay of his family life because he's just trying to search for truth and justice, because nobody's really right in this situation, but still nobody's really wrong. It's a weird dynamic. And Oliver Stone is a great director. People think he's insane. I just think he's a conspiracy theorist like the rest of us. Like, he shouldn't get flack for this movie. He just said what he thought was right. And honestly, why can't we just live in a world where people can just express their opinion? It's just my opinion, honestly. And the number 1 greatest movie of all time, in my opinion, is a tie. The Godfather or Goodfellas.
Mm-hmm.
These 2 are spot on, just great as gangster movies. I love gangster movies. The Godfather, people say like Goodfellas is the best because it's the best gangster movie because The Godfather's too romanticized and they don't base their things on honor and a code. But like, it's unfair to compare them. The Godfather ends literally right when Goodfellas starts.
Right.
It's 2 different eras of the mafia.
Yeah.
This was like The Godfather was like a post Lucky Luciano, New York mafia. And then Goodfellas went from like, honor to intimidation, where they would threaten to kill people.
Yeah.
Like in Goodfellas, there's so many like, Tommy DeSimone shoots a guy, Robert De Niro's only concerned that he's gonna have to dig the hole himself.
Yeah.
Joe Pesci kills a made man. He's only worried about getting blood on Henry's club floor. Some guy is shot in the middle of the street. The owner of the pizza shop only cares about wasting 7 aprons.
Right.
These people were just cold-hearted psychopaths.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack. This is probably the greatest sound. Both of these movies have the greatest soundtracks in movie history. They're in period, and they're just. It's just like. Their soundtracks are almost part of the movie. It's like impossible to have it without them.
Yes.
Like the 50s have like the doo-wop, and then it switches from 50s love songs to like weird 70s rock songs.
Right.
So anyway, so in both of these movies, they're just such great movies. They're so well made. Francis Ford Coppola and Martin Scorsese. Goodfellas kind of resurrected the gangster genre in the 90s, the way that Scream resurrected the slasher genre, with movies coming out in the late 90s like Donnie Brasco and A Bronx Tale, and eventually in 2000, one of the greatest TV shows of all time, The Sopranos, comes out.